Security is another thing as well that we are looking into a lot. And there are lots of if you assume you have some kind of wireless module like this is a wireless module, and it has a CPU or MCU inside, and then there are a cloud service up here, and then there's a radio network here, and then there is a firmware, some software running in the module, for example, or in the device, and there are some interface connecting the device somewhere else. There's a lot of attack points here that is dangerous for if you want to have safe data. And I will go through a little bit about this problem as I see it. One problem probably is where everything starts, in my opinion, is that that you really know that the thing that's running in your device is the thing you aim to run on the device. And how many really know that how many systems really know that the right software is running in the device? That's nothing else has been kind of put into the device by some malicious, yeah. And so this is a very important feature that we think that a real Internet of Things device that is used for more advanced use cases must really have a secure boot of firmware, knowing that you actually boot the right software every time. So you know that no one else that someone else hasn't put their own software into the device. That's one thing. Another thing is, of course, in our case, that it works with radio, a secure radio link. You see a lot of radio links. If you kind of get out and scan for radio links, wherever you are in the world, you see a lot of radio links that are completely open. They are not secure at all. That's very common, actually, and much more common than you can believe. So this is one thing that we need to think about, of course, as well. Another thing is, okay, you can secure the radio link, but what actually people often want to have is some kind of authenticated and encrypted application all the way to the cloud. So inside the device here, where you actually collect the data, you want to kind of have a secure link all the way to the cloud, of course. That's what people normally mean by Internet of Things security, but that's only one part of Internet of Things security. The other things we talked about is also important. But this is, of course, what people normally mean by Internet of Things security, that you have a data point, that you know it's this data point is coming from here and sent to this service up here. No one else can kind of get into it. But another thing that people normally often forget, if you have a device, is that there are other interfaces. Normally this device can talk to another interface. There are some kind of interface. Do you know that this is secure? In many cases not. I mean, we have example for products that's using Ethernet as an interface to another interface. That interface is not secure. So people can actually do bad things over the host interface to the other device. And we that make modules like this, for example, we must make sure that if people connect to this device using some kind of external interface, we must make sure that we could, if the customer wants to at least, that we can have a reliable connection to this device. So we don't know that no one else can come in the middle and do something. Often forgotten in this area is that if you make a board, if you develop a board that you use for something, of course you want to debug the board. So you have some kind of port on the board so you can debug. You have some serial port or a debug port. And of course that port is a really dangerous point in security. So if someone can get into that, he can actually destroy the complete device or change the software in the device. So that should of course also be protected. And that's very often forgotten. Then the API as such, if you look in the real world, you have some kind of API, that application interface that connects from this device to this device. And in many cases, those interfaces are not secured. It means that, for example, it's not the same as the previous point, because in this case we talk about, a good example is a radio module like this, for example. And if you have a radio module, that radio module might have special commands that is used to trim the module in production, for example, or have commands that makes it possible to tune the module and things like that. You see a lot of cases where you actually can get to those commands over the host interface. They're maybe not documented, But does that help? If you can get to the commands anyway, someone will do it. And some of you laugh at me and say, is this really the case? But in many cases, this is really the case. Those type of interfaces are really open in many cases. And that's really bad, of course. So if you have an interface, you should see to that you block out those API functionality that is not allowed for the customer to use. Another thing is spoofing and jamming. Do you know the difference between spoofing and jamming? And jamming is, of course, when you just have in radio world, if you have a wideband signal that just destroys everything that's in the air, more or less. And that, of course, is difficult to prohibit. If someone really wants to do that, if you fill this room with bad Wi-Fi signals all over the place, it's difficult for real Wi-Fi to get through, of course. But what is important for a company like us that makes Internet of Things that really matters is that to be able to detect that, so that we can warn upwards that now there is some problems that we need to handle. So that's something that we put a lot of work into as well, to find out, are we jammed or not. Spoofing is when you actually kind of pretend you are someone else. You pretend you are a real part of the network. And of course, encryption of the Wi-Fi and things like that could prohibit that. But there are many use cases where that doesn't really that is not really done. So for example, one good thing is in Wi-Fi, lots of access points, they are not protected on the MAC layer, on the lower layers. So you can actually deauthorize or detach the device from the network by spoofing it, a message, send a message in the air, and all the devices disconnects. Things like that is very common today. So of course, spoofing is important to protect. And in GPS that we also work in, it's something that is starting to become a real problem. That people actually pretend they are a GPS transmitter, a satellite. And actually you can fool the GPS that you are somewhere else in the world. That's really bad if you are flying UAV or something like that. So actually what people also are doing is using these type of devices to spoof. Say if you have an insurance box, and many, not so common here in Europe, but in the US it's very common that you have a box in your car that you pay, the insurance you pay is depending on how much you drive and where you drive and things like that. So if you can spoof the position where you are, you can get a lower insurance. And actually people do that. We have had cases like that. So it's rather common, these type of problems. Another thing is that we who make modules like this, we want to be able to put, we want to allow people to put their own code in the module. So if people want to put their own code in this module, we want our customers to be able to do that, because those modules are rather powerful. So in that case, of course, you need to make sure that this is done in a secure way. For example, separate the custom application from our own application. And that's also a regulatory thing, because the Wi-Fi part, for example, is protected by regulatory rules. So you don't allow to do whatever you want with the Wi-Fi part and things like that. So this is very important to protect the application from the provider of the module, from the application from the customer. And that's also very often, if you use a simple system, development system, that could be maybe not at all done. And there's also, it means that you need to have secure interfaces to and from the application to the code that we deliver as a module manufacturer. And the reason why we say that we need to have a more advanced environment, and we're looking, for example, there is an environment developed by ARM now called Embed, that in the future at least will support this type of features, for example, so that you can actually separate your application from the standard application in the device in a real good way, and that is very important. And also separate, for example, security data from the application data and things like that is very important.